Um, Thanks for that button. Um, if you can still see me, I want to butt in. Are you seriously drinking my beer cap? Goodness me. Cats. So I've re-angled the camera. So let's try that again. G'day viewers. I want to butt in on the to and fro between Dave Rawlings and Shay Diversity 8, whatever your real name is, to make the following point. Okay, I think the miscommunication that's going on is that Shay Diversity is talking about techniques, and he's basically saying, well, if I come up with a technique that works, why shouldn't I use that? Why isn't that historical? And you know, he's absolutely right. If it works, then it was probably thought of and used by somebody at some point in history. However, for me, the historical part of HEMA is that it is a principle-based art. Okay, it's not a collection of tricks. It's not a series of techniques. Each of these arts is based on fundamental principles. And like the English stuff that I generally work from is really explicit about this. Okay, so the first page of Silver is his principles. The first page of Swordsman are his principles. Page puts them at the end, but they're still there, a list of principles. And the techniques that are described in the manuals are merely exemplars of the principles at play. Because you can't cover every situation in a manual. Okay, so all you can do is give the principles, give an example of them, and our job as practitioners is to learn the principles and learn to apply the principles in a consistent manner to whatever situation it is that we come across. Now, if all you've got is a series of techniques or a bag of tricks, then what you're doing is probably not historical. And in the end, probably not going to be very effective, because when you come across something novel, you have nothing to fall back on. You know, so you are doing what I call a mama, which is a made-up martial art. And if you really, really emphasize on doing what works, then you're doing what I call a mums, that is a made-up martial sport. Because the whole concept of it works means that what you tap the other person in the sort of free play that we do, without any real understanding of what the consequences of that might be in real life. Would it be effective in the conditions in which people were actually fighting for their lives with swords? You know, a lot of the assumptions that people make about the efficacy of a particular blow, what effect that would have on your opponent, could be completely wrong. Okay, we don't know. We have to rely on historical sources to tell us that this is effective, that is ineffective. You know, and likewise, you know, if all you do is fight indoors in sports shoes on nice grippy gym floors, your whole movement style might be completely useless outside in the mud, in the fields, in, you know, medieval turn shoes, which is how people actually fought. So saying that it works is not a good judgment of whether or not what you're doing would work in the context in which you would actually need it in a real sword fight. And we do need to refer to historical sources to get some idea about that. Now, it is definitely worth pointing out that even within historical sources, different masters fundamentally disagreed on fundamental principles. Okay, so the principles upon which Silver's fight are based are diametrically opposed to Lichtenauer's, for example. And that's okay. Our aim as practitioners is to fight in a style consistent with the principles of the art that we are learning. And if you start mixing and matching, that's when I think you become unstuck. That is detrimental to your ability to become the best swordsman that you can be, because without that bed of fundamental principles, you have nothing to fall back on when you meet a novel situation. So I have some sympathy for the desire to be the best swordsman you can be. That's not my aim personally. If it was, I wouldn't research and teach, a couple of dozen different systems and weapons. I'd pick one or two and just concentrate on those to become really, really, really good at them. But that's not my aim, and it's not my job. My job is to teach people whatever it is that they want to learn to the best of my ability. But I do think that the route of taking the principles of your historical sources and sticking to the techniques that fit within them is the best route to becoming the best swordsman that you can be. Now, within most traditions, there's plenty of wiggle room, if you like. Okay, we usually have multiple sources where the masters will disagree fundamentally about the best way to do something. Okay, so do you have your weight on the front leg, even weighted, back weighted? Do you slip every blow or only the ones that are struck at your leg? And you'll find, sources right next to each other where they have personal preferences about these things and disagree. And therefore you can choose whichever works best for you, and that's fine. But if you don't have a set of fundamental principles that you try and stick to, or you keep violating them, then I think that it's going to severely limit the depth of your swordsmanship. So, in conclusion, I don't think there's anything wrong with, if you say, inventing new techniques that work in your free play, as long as they are consistent with the principles of a particular art or tradition that you are practicing. Okay, Silver left us brief instructions. They are not complete, they are brief. And we can think of plenty of situations that Silver just doesn't mention. He doesn't talk about rising cuts at all. But because he left us a really, really complete set of principles, we can take those principles and apply them to the situation of a rising cut and figure out what Silver would probably have done, and something that is consistent with the tradition. The last thing to add, I guess, is that because we do have a variety of different arts and traditions that we can explore that are based on different principles, there usually is one that is more suited to your personal preferences than others. Okay, so personally, I hate the German thing. Okay, the only German thing that I teach is 133, and I fully admit it does not come naturally. Okay, the whole initiative and forward momentum and making the other guy react to you all the time, it violates every Silveresque or English principle that is in the core of my being. But I also have students who just take to it very naturally. Like they were born to do German swordsmanship. So whether your personal body shape and size and I think more mental instinct is the important bit, reacts best to German or English or Italian or Spanish or whatever, you will find an art that suits you better than others. And so I fully encourage people to explore as many different styles and systems and traditions as they possibly can, and go with the one that sits best with their personal instincts. So anyway, that's my little contribution. I will see you soon.